Welcome to another episode of Baby Daddy Chronicles. It is I, it is he, it is your future favorite, Baby Daddy. And today, I have a guest on, one of my dad's friends, Dr. Joshua, right?
Correct. Yep,
Correct.
Dr. Joshua. Yes, indeed.
How you doing today?
I'm doing good today, man. Real good.
Listen.
Always good to be in Orlando, Florida, up here in the Central Florida area by Disney World and all that good stuff.
So are you from the West Coast?
I'm originally from the West Coast. Yep,
Okay.
born and raised in the Bay Area.
Okay.
Migrated to Los Angelinos, as I call it, when I was 18.
Los Angelinos, okay.
Went to Long Beach State University and been out there ever since. And about 10 years ago, felt inspired to move to South Florida. So I became bi-coastal. Met my wife at church, and I've been stationed in South Florida and Los Angeles ever since.
Okay. And you say you've been married for 7 years, right?
7 years, yeah.
Okay. How's and how old are your kids?
Oh, my daughter is 13 years of age, so I had her before I got married.
Okay.
And then my son is 6 years old.
Okay. All right. Oh, 13 to 6. That's a little gap.
Little gap, yeah, absolutely.
You done no more?
No more. No. My wife would like more, but I'm done. I'm done.
I respect that. How's your mental health before we get started?
I think my mental health is great, actually. I feel good. My mind is right. My emotions is right. So, yeah, definitely in a really good space.
I definitely appreciate you the time to do this with me. I'm doing good myself.
Oh, that's
here,
great.
blessed.
Yeah.
You know, things don't always go the way they go, but as long as I'm living.
That's it.
So,
that's it.
Today, right, I wanted to touch on giving your child grace. And sometimes how that's important because as from what I realized from parents, sometimes we forget that we were kids as well, and they're literally spitting little people of us.
Right.
So then we don't give them enough grace, and it's like, well, why can't you do this? But sometimes you got to remember, like they're doing what 13-year-olds would do,
right?
Or they're doing what 6-year-olds would do. Right. So how do you feel like you give your children enough grace, or is that something you feel like you need to work on, or so you have a good balance with that?
I think I give them much grace. I'm more of the easygoing father.
Okay.
I will say this, my daughter is much more easier than my son.
What do you mean? Give me an example.
What I mean by that, my daughter's more just, she's chill. She's, 13 years, no problem, straight A student. Maybe because her mother is really strict, so I think I could probably align that with that. But my daughter's just cool, chill, relaxed. Has high emotional intelligence.
Okay.
She's very, very just calm, peaceful. My son is like the mayor of the world. He talks to everybody, meets everyone. But in addition to that, he's going to push the envelope.
Okay.
And if he wants something, he wants something. So that's a great trait, by the way. So he's going to be very ambitious. He's going to do everything he can. He'll come like 50 million different ways to get what he wants. But then again, you have to really discipline him. You have to remind him. And I go a little extreme sometimes. And the reason I go extreme is so that I can imprint that in his mind so he knows like, okay, I can't play around with my father because I'll never tell him what he may do. But other than that, my kids are great. They listen to me. I don't have major talk back. So pretty much it's good. So as far as grace, I think I'm pretty graceful, unless it's something I really don't agree with. I'll have to like, no, you shouldn't be doing that. Yeah,
because I know growing up, like I wouldn't say I was horrible. I just really expect authority like that. So I already know like when I have kids, I'm like, okay, I got to give them to about like 7th grade, because that's when I got it. I got it together in 8th grade. So anything past that, all right, your grace is kind of like you had like a 13-year period,
right,
like
exactly.
Of this grace. So I definitely understand. But I just feel like when it comes to like some parents, it's like they'll be so hard on their kids, and they be like, "Why are you doing this and that?" But I'm like, bro, like you was doing the same exact stuff,
right,
at that age. Like I think as parents, like. I wanted somebody else on. It was like, we got to remember that all parents are really just bigger kids. That's really all that they are. Right. They was like, they may have matured, but they're still a big kid at heart. And now they have a kid. And it's just like, yo, like sometimes we just got to be able to just sit back and reflect and be like, okay, I can't stand that you did this, but I did the same thing at your age and I knew better. So I'm going to give you this grace, but I'm going to have to sit down and talk to you, be like, hey, this is why we don't do this. Because I feel like if you're too hard on your kids, you'll push them away.
Right. Yeah, I think there's two things. I think number one, I think it has to come from a place of love. So I think there has to be authentic love. And authentic love is where like when I communicate, when I discipline, it's not that I want to hurt you. It's not that I'm mad, like I'm allowing my frustrations or my irritation, but it's actually coming from a place that I want to make you better. And so I think that intentionality is really important. So everything I do, it's about making you better. And so I think that's a first stance. And I think the second thing is everything's a learning lesson.
Yes.
I often tell people that failure is a preparation for success, and that everyone is going to everyone is going to fail in the journey. There's this old saying when I was younger, this new generation doesn't get it, But the old generation understand there used to be this thing. They said first is the worst and second is the best. We used to say that, but not understanding the truth behind that. Because your first is always going to be the worst and your second is always going to be better in anything that you do. And so with your children, when they make that mistake, when things don't go the way that they desire, you don't want to be hard on them and say, you're the worst person in the world. Oh my gosh, you're da-da-da-da-da, all the negative words. But this problem is sit down and say, okay, this is what happened. How can we learn from this? How can we grow from this? And then use it, use it as we move forward. So I think that's a way of getting grace. And I've done that with my son a couple of times when he did bad or he wasn't doing his work.
Okay.
So I do my manipulation. I'll say, okay, fine. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take away your car or something he likes. And I'm saying I'm going to hold on to it. And you have the entire week. If you can show me improvement and you can do good, I'm going to give it back to you. And that is work with my son. He'll do better, and then I give it back to him. And then there was another time where he was just really nice. He was giving. And I said, I'm a believer in generosity. So I gave him a jersey, Laker jersey, based on actions that exemplify what it means what I believe to do the right thing.
Okay.
And so I think that's a matter of grace, is rewarding as well as teaching throughout the process.
When you got your doctorate, was your kids like young enough to be able to remember it, or were they still like?
Yeah, my son was really young.
Okay.
My daughter was a little older, so she understands a little bit.
Okay.
But I don't know if they fully got the grasp of it yet.
So how big would you say education is in your family? Like, is
very big. Oh yeah. I'm a strong believer in education.
Okay.
Again, I believe you can be educated a variety of ways.
Correct.
So I don't want to just say you got to go to school and that determines education. I mean, education, you don't have to have a degree and you can be very educated. So education is a multifaceted thing. I think it just aligns with what your purpose is in life.
Okay.
So for me, when I went to school, that was just something I wanted to do because I wanted to be an NBA basketball player. In order to be an NBA basketball player, you got to go to college, right? So that was number one for me. And then being what I wanted to do, I felt like it was a good path for where I wanted to go to. And I love college.
Okay.
And then after that, I went to my master's in my doctoral program. But the reason I did that is because I realized it could enhance my speaking. So I was a leadership speaker. So all my master's was in organizational leadership and my doctoral was in organizational leadership. Again, it's all connected to my purpose. And so that's what I think is really important for people, is people just go through the motions without really considering, okay, what skill sets, what competencies do I need in order to align where I'm going? And I think that's really, really important.
Okay. I want to touch on this before we get back to, because you had said something else. Do you feel like growing up, your parents gave you enough grace?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. My parents definitely gave me enough grace. Yeah, definitely. My father was definitely more strict than my mother.
Okay.
But I feel like I had a lot of grace.
Yeah, for me, it's my mom's more strict than my dad. Like me and my dad have a little bit better understanding than me and my mom. Like me and my dad would get something, and then me and my mom, she'd be like, well, why didn't you just do this? But my dad understands it, so I get it.
Yeah.
You said children need to be raised off love. And I feel like, especially in this generation, I'm not saying that parents don't love their kids, but it's not shown enough.
Right.
It's not shown that, hey, like, I love you, I'll go beyond for you. It's just more so I'm making sure you have a house over your head. I'm putting food in your stomach. But kids need more than that.
Right.
Like, I always tell people this. Like, I feel like as fathers, if you're just providing but you're not doing anything else, then you're not really being a dad.
Right. Yes.
Because you can easily, like, provide, but children need that support. They need that love. Like, my dad never missed a basketball game. That always sticks with me. So when I have a kid, I want to make sure, like, I never miss any of their sporting events because my dad was there. And he was a busy man, but he still made sure, like, it was a priority to him as opposed to doing something else.
Right.
And that's something that I feel like, especially me, when I have kids, like, I can carry that on to my kids because that was something that I remember. Right. Like, we've never, like, ever since I remember growing up, like, we've never lived in, like, a bad neighborhood. That's something that I want to continue with my kids. You know what I'm saying? That peace of mind and that security as opposed to growing up in the hood. Ain't nothing wrong with it. If that's your circumstance by any stretch of means. But, like, having that, I was able, it was more of a solid foundation. Like, just looking off my mom and dad's relationship, like, I see that he loves her. So now I know, like, okay, this is how I need to love a woman. Because I feel like that's also part of what's going on wrong with this generation. It's too many broken homes, but I consider a broken home different than most people. Like, I feel like you can co-parent in separate houses, but it still not be a broken home because there's still unity there.
Exactly.
But there's broken homes to where there's no unity. You do what you do, I do what I do. And I feel like as parents, whether we're together or not, it needs to be a united front.
Right. That's good.
Because if it's not a united front, then the kids just going to get away with everything.
Right. There's so many. Okay, let me start here. So with my daughter, from my ex, I got divorced once, remarried. And so I remember, we were definitely incompatible. That's the good word that I'll say. But we always made the agreement that we were going to be respectful. We were going to be supportive. We were going to be nice. Through all the disagreements we had, we were going to still respect each other based on our child.
Okay.
Because the way in which parents interact with each other can have a direct impact on our child. Okay. And I think one of the great things we've been able to do with our daughter, although we've had some disagreements, is that we've still always been amicable or peaceful, respectful, loving in front of our daughter. Even to the point where we're from what I understand, never putting each other down. No matter how mad we get, I'm not going to put you down. I'm not going to be mad. I'm not going to be vindictive, because at the end of the day, that is your child's mother, whether or not the relationship worked out or not. And everyone needs their mother and their father in relationship. And so, number one, I think that's really important, to have a united front, regardless if you're together or not, for the betterment of your child.
Exactly.
Moving forward now, when we do a love's a very interesting thing, because, there's different multifacets of love. And love is not, I like to always say, it's not a feeling, it's a choice. So
that is true.
So it's not based on how you feel, it's that you decide to do it. So when we deal with the parent loving their kids, I'm making the choice to do it despite how I feel, or despite how they may treat me in a certain situation, right? When we're doing love. But to go a step farther, there's different ways in which people desire to be loved. So there's a book, and I'm sure many are familiar with, it's called The 5 Love Languages. And in the book, Dr. Chapman talks about how people have different love languages. And so I think it's really important when it comes to your kids, how do they feel your love? Because some may feel it through gifts, some may feel it through affirmation, some may feel it through time. I mean, there's a variety of ways. Quality time may be one. So you got to understand, how does that love portray with your children, and then being able to maximize that. Because I think, one of the things that I've learned is my daughter, I'm on the road, I live in a different state. So it's a little different as far as being there all the time. But one thing she knows, I've always been supportive. And one of the greatest sacrifices that I made in an inflation community is I've kept my place in Long Beach. So every month I fly out there. I make sure I'm there to see her in person and to support, despite being on the other side of the country. And that bill in itself, not to be bi-coastal, not to be in LA and Miami. No, that bill in itself, to be in my daughter's life every month, is an extra set of costs that literally is a sacrifice from where we could be.
It's a sacrifice and a commitment.
If I wasn't your commitment as well, flying all the way across the country. So definitely, I think my daughter appreciates that. I think she sees that for sure.
Okay, I wonder. Yeah, that's amazing, because I remember when my dad moved down here and we were still up north. He made that I think he would fly home twice a month. And now, like, I didn't get it growing up, but now that I'm older, I just got a long distance relationship. I was flying up north once a month, and I'm like, this is expensive. Like, I can't even imagine doing this twice a month. I was like, sheesh.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch on this. I feel like when sometimes parents, like, they'll say certain stuff, and they may be wrong, and I feel like sometimes parents don't apologize to their kids. And I feel like that is very important, because you're teaching your kid, I'm sorry I made a mistake, I want to apologize, as opposed to, oh, well, you don't need an apology. I feel like that's a big thing in this community, because if you're wrong, just say sorry. It's not that big of a deal, because like, instead of like, and then sometimes like, it'd be culture to be like, where you may be having a conversation with your kid and be like, oh, watch that back talk. But it's not necessarily back talk. It's just, I think sometimes as parents, we forget, or parents forget, how to understand when a child is speaking their mind and when you perceive it back talk. Because sometimes when kids speak their mind, you may think it's back talk, but really it's just their opinion on stuff.
Right. And I definitely got to be forgiving. Again, that's the aspect of love. Love is forgiveness. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's a huge attribute of love, is that you're forgiving. I think you're transparent. You're humble. I like to use the word humility. And so, humility is like saying, you know what? I am wrong. I'm sorry. Let's correct this. Let's make it better. And I think that's a huge thing. And I think that goes a really long way as far as transparency, as far as vulnerability, and helping your child understand that no one is perfect.
Exactly.
And I think that's really, really important as well. Understand that no one is perfect. And I love that concept. Absolutely.
Exactly. Because I'd be looking at parents and I'd just be like, so you don't want to be vulnerable with your kids. You don't want to apologize to your kids, but you expect your kids to do what you want them to do.
Right.
But you're not willing to say you're sorry when you're sorry.
Right.
Or when you mess up.
Right. That's true. Yeah. And I also want to say another thing about talk back. I think it's good for kids to speak up, actually.
I agree.
I guess it's the way in which you do it, though, right?
Correct.
So my father used to tell me something when he was growing up, and I have another friend that talked about this, that with their family, they would gather at the table and they would have debates. And so in that debating process, it teaches your children how to communicate, how to advocate, and how to voice their opinion. And I think that's really important because those are critical lessons as you get older.
Exactly.
And another thing I like to always say is parenting is basically leadership. You know what I'm saying? So there's a popular scripture that says if you want to become a bishop, then you must first take care of your family. You know, and people always make the notion that put family first. That's a whole nother conversation for another day. Because I believe God's purpose comes first. I know everyone doesn't agree with me on that, but that's just my personal opinion. But there's a truth in that. Because if you can manage your family well, if you can lead your kids well, you'll be able to lead other people well.
I agree with you on
that. The same attributes that you are exemplifying in your household, you hopefully should be exemplifying in other places as well. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, there's a little. You're not just dealing with your kid, but there's some very big truths there that can be really beneficial moving forward.
I agree. Sometimes, I wish certain things growing up, me and my parents did wish they would apologize, but when I have kids, because I'm about to be 33 in a month.
Okay.
I know, I want to take all the good things they did, but I also want them to be okay, I remember they did this. I want to make sure that me and my kids have that understanding. Hey, do you have a problem?
Yep.
You can address me like an adult.
Right.
But just make sure it's in a respectful way and we can have a conversation. If you feel like I did this when I should have did this, explain to you as to why I did this. And if I feel like your argument is good enough, then I'd be okay, I'll do it your way next time.
Right.
As opposed to being oh, well, no, I'm the parent, I'm going to do it my way. When your child could actually have a legit better way.
Right, exactly.
I feel like sometimes, some parents just aren't open-minded. I don't know if it's because of how, their parents were raised. Right. Because I feel you can take some parenting styles from your parents, but you also got to remember that each kid is different.
Absolutely.
You're not going to be especially now in this generation, back in the day, they just be go get a switch and it's common. You can't do that now. You know what I'm saying? You got people trying to rat you out for being your own kid.
Right.
For doing what the Bible says.
Right. Not only what the Bible says, I don't know about y'all, but I know that helped me a lot to say, be from the child to know that was coming my way. Oh yeah, that helped me a lot.
Exactly. I'd be I remember I was having a conversation with my parents. I was without all them whoopings, I don't know where I'd be right now. Because y'all just let me do whatever I wanted to do. I'll probably be in a cell somewhere.
Right.
But because y'all gave me that discipline and that structure, I understand it now. I get it. When I have kids, I'm going to be I don't. So I have a rule. I feel you shouldn't really, at least for my aspect, you shouldn't really start disciplining your kids to maybe I would say from first grade to 8th grade.
Okay.
And after that, we work out some type of different punishment. So if the whoopings ain't working for you, okay, you want to go out with your friends, you can't do that.
Yeah.
I'll take your PS5 away. I'll take your game away.
Right,
you said.
Yep.
Until we figure out something because whoopings may not work for everybody, but if I feel this is going to help better, you got the PS5, you just want to play it and Madden just came out, I'm taking it away.
Right.
Because you ain't do what you're supposed to do.
Exactly.
And then after you do what you're supposed to do, we'll have a talk, and I feel like you grasp what I was trying to teach you, I'll give it back to you.
Yeah, and also I think you got to set the example. So me and my wife have an interesting journey, right? So when my son was younger, my wife was real don't be doing that, because I did some crazy things. So one time he acted up, I took his toy, I broke it, and I throw it out. I mean, I did some very extreme stuff. You know what I'm saying? I didn't touch it, but I did some extreme stuff. But the reason I did the extreme stuff is because I wanted to let him know you can't play with your dad because your dad is crazy, right? So it was all a setup.
You got to set that boundary.
I'm setting a boundary when he's young, because when they're young, they're oh man, my dad is crazy. I ain't fooling with him. And his mom was oh, you're being too much. You're doing too much. And she would always criticize me. But now, when my son acts up and I say something, immediately he'll listen. With his mom, they have a whole nother relationship and conversation on. And so I expressed to her, I said, I wasn't trying to hurt him. I wasn't trying to traumatize him. But I want to make it clear, I'm crazy and you need to listen to what your father says. So from there, it becomes more easier to discipline. You know what I'm saying? It becomes more easier to listen. And my son loves me, so it's not he knows I'm not trying to, you know what I'm saying? But I have to set the tone to a degree where it really hits him. And my son, I had to go kind of extreme.
Even with my dad, at an early age, he said he was the fun parent, but he was also hey, like he said, hey, and you straighten up real quick because you know, like, you don't want that. Like, you know, you even to this day, he got old man strength. I don't want no smoke with my dad. You know how people get old, they be like, take your dad. No, I can't take him. Nah, I can't. Not even close. I don't want no smoke. He be like, you want to go? Like, I'm cool.
Yeah.
You want to take out trash? I got you.
Yep.
Like, I don't need my chest caved in. Like, I'm cool right now.
Absolutely.
Like,
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yep.
I'm cool right now. So I want to switch over to the Parent in the Corner segment, and then after that, we'll get done.
Okay.
So the first question is, I have like a struggle of the week. So if you could try to remember, or even recently, like a struggle that happened in your household, and then how you handled it versus how you should have handled it.
Okay, just in my household, a struggle that came up in our household that I can handle.
Or even like parenting wise.
Parenting wise, what's a struggle that came up? Man, that's a really, really good question. I really have, because it's been really good. So I'm like, what do I think about? Man, I got to think about it. Give me the next question. I'll come back.
Okay. How do you view yourself as a father?
Oh, I view myself as a guide.
Okay.
So what I mean by that, I believe that I'm in my kids' life to guide them, to empower them to succeed. One of the things I talk about when it comes to parenting is my responsibility is to identify what I believe God has called them to do. So I'm consistently asking my kid, what are you good at? What do you want to do in the future? Where do you see yourself? So I'm always kind of investigate what I see them doing. And then based on that, I resource and push them in that direction.
Okay.
So for instance, my daughter now, she wants to play basketball, right? So obviously I get her into camps and I'm getting her into things to where I'm playing with her. I'm having her go to the gym with me, be on my team.
Yeah, that's major.
Working on jump shots so she can thinking about who's the best coach, who's the best trainer, invest in that. My daughter, I found had a voice. And so when she had a voice, I prayed for her and I bought singing lessons so she can work on her voice.
Okay.
So what I do is I try to identify where her strengths are, and then I try to resource that and I try to fund that while also letting her become who she wants to be versus me telling her what to do. And then with my son, there's been a prophecy. I mean, everyone can say he's going to play football one day. So although he has no idea what this is, because of what I've heard, I've put him in those positions where he can do that. He also wants to speak. He said, I want to talk. He's like, he has my manners. He wants to be a speaker. So I can't do it now because he's a little younger, but we're working on how can you be a speaker? How do you work on your introduction? Okay. So for me, it's all a matter of, and also God, I praying for my kids, worship. I do all that because so for instance, me and my wife do it so much in front of my son. My son prays, worships. They call him a preacher right now. But I think that's because of the environment in which we create. Okay. And so I'm very intentional about what I do to help them go where they need to go to.
That's a big thing because I know growing up, I really wanted to be a basketball player. But I remember we was having this conversation with me and my dad. My parents living back in Jersey. Yeah. He told me early on, he was like, hey, look, I ain't going to hold you. You're kind of short. You're not going to be an NBA player. But he was like, what you could do, you like sports and you like to speak. You could become like a sports broadcaster. Right. And that led me into the direction of going to FAM. And then if I never would have I was in broadcasting camp from, I want to say 13 to when I finished high school, 17. Okay. So maybe even 11. So those 6 years, even though I never finished, I had a leg up on the people that was in my journalism class because I knew, okay, I can do radio. I can do play-by-play radio. But being an anchor, I can't do that because I don't know how to read off the teleprompter and not make it seem like I'm reading off the teleprompter. That's good, yeah. So I knew early on. Even though I didn't finish, that led to what we're doing right now. Right, because I would have never done this not having that experience. So I agree with that 1,000%. Absolutely. 1,000%. Do you have a funny dad story that's happened to you?
A funny dad story? What's a funny dad story? That's, I guess, the pranks, right? So... my son always likes to do pranks. Okay. So I gotta. What's some pranks that he's done that really? I gotta think about it.
I know.
These are some good. I feel bad because I normally have these questions.
You're good.
But some funny stories, some things that happen. I would just say the pranks. What I'm saying? Like normally my son, he'll hide stuff and say, and I'm like, what's going on? What's going on? They're like, oh, you fooled you, or stuff like that. Okay. I guess that may be a little prank.
All right.
But that's it. That's I think yeah.
Give us some fatherly advice.
There's a lot. I think number one, put God first.
Okay.
So my first fatherly advice is put God first in all that you do. I think another big one that I'm learning is being disciplined. I think disciplining your habits, and when I say disciplining your habits, disciplining things that make you better.
Okay.
So what do I need to do each day to make me a better father? So what habits, what books, what do I need to listen to? What do I need to work on in order to make sure that I'm giving my best every day? What are some self-care practices that I can do on another day? I think that's really important because I think habits are so important. And
I agree with you
when you put together habits, you can actually perform better. And so many times as parents, you can become overwhelmed, tired. And so one of your habits can be self-care habits. How are you taking care of yourself? How are you taking care of mental breaks? How are you keeping the strength to juggle so many different things at one time? Because really, you know, as a father, you have a lot of responsibilities. I mean, I look at my life sometimes and I think about it, right? I have kids on 2 different parts of the country. I'm married. I have 2 businesses. I do ministry. I have all these things going on. How do you do it? I do it through habits. I do it through putting God first and knowing that he'll give me the strength to do everything I need to do, which leads me to a point I was going to share earlier. And I'll never forget, I got this word of wisdom, and I think this is definitely going to hit someone out there.
Okay.
I'll never forget that a woman told me, when you have kids, God will always provide. That was one of the most powerful truths I've ever heard in my life, because when I have kids and there's challenges financially, how am I going to provide? If you trust God, he will always give you what you need to take care of your kids if you believe. And the other second word of wisdom on top of that I want to say is I was under a preacher in LA, Bishop Clarence McClendon, and he had 3 kids, and he's a traveling evangelist, so he's on the road a lot. And he said something I'll never forget with my daughter. He said, when you do God's business, God will take care of your kids. And that was really powerful, because as I was traveling, I was on the road, you know, you think, well, I'm not there enough, God, I'm not giving that support. But if I do his business, he'll take care of everything else. And that's been one of the words I've stuck on, because although I travel, I'm on the road, although I'm bi-coastal, me and my daughter still have a great relationship. Obviously, I'm doing my part, but I need God to fill in the gap in certain places in which to help me there as well.
Okay. I like that. Yeah, those are some gems. Those are definitely some gems, because I ain't think of it like that. I was like, I understand the responsibilities, but just everything you were saying, I was thinking like, I didn't even really think of it like that. Yeah, so definitely. If you had to dad draft, right, round 1 through 7, where would you fall and what pick and why?
Oh, if I was rating myself, I give myself a 5.
Okay,
I give myself a 5. I think that I could probably spend more time.
All right.
And I think that I could probably deposit more wisdom. You know, I feel like that's been my biggest thing, especially with my daughter. I feel like there's more that I want to just impart, because I think one of the things of a generational blessing is wisdom.
Okay.
Even one that I've been thinking about lately is health. So for instance, I just went to the hospital and I realized that I had high blood sugar, which I'm bringing down. But I realized that certain things like high blood sugar, blood pressure, and other things could be genetics.
Yes.
So there's a good chance that your parents dealt with what you dealt with.
Yes.
So in talking with your parents about what they did to prevent or to overcome that challenge, that's health. That's a health blessing. But a lot of times, I don't know if parents share that with their kids.
Yeah, they don't. Not until it's too late. It'd be like, oh, they in the hospital, and it's like, yeah, like cancer runs in my family. Like, you just now telling me, and I'm like 45. Like,
right,
you could have told me this at like 20 something.
Exactly.
Because now, like, it may be too late for me. Maybe it's already, I could have avoided it by eating certain stuff, but now I can't avoid it because it's already here.
Right, exactly. And that's what I call generational blessing. You know, it's not just money, it's not just finances. There's wisdom, there's insight, there's health, and there's value. So I would give myself a 5, because I think there's definitely more that I could give and more that I can empower. I don't know if my kids would say that, because they seem to be very happy. But for me, you know what I'm saying, really leaving something for them. Also just moving more towards where I can give them more inheritance. Okay. If that makes sense to you.
That makes sense.
You know, that's a process. But you give, you know, if it's possible where I could give my kids a house, you know what I'm saying, when they get older, you know, that's a really big deal. But that takes time, that takes process as we go along.
I like it. We're going to wrap it up. I like it.
Yeah.
You have any social media you want to share or no?
Social media. So I'm on Instagram, Dr. Joshua Fredenburg, LinkedIn. Please connect me on LinkedIn, Facebook. I don't do TikTok, which I should, but I'm out there. So I'm out there for sure.
So everything for the same?
Everything for the same. Yeah. Just hit me up, and and I got YouTube. I got your YouTube channel as well.
Okay, yeah. Just send me the link so I could put that in the episode details.
Okay, sure. I will definitely.
So y'all know y'all can find me, man. www.theaverageshowmedia.com if you want to start a podcast. You hear how we sound.
Yep.
I'm gonna get you right. I'm gonna get you pristine, as you already know.
This is an Average Joe Media production.
And follow the Instagram, Baby Daddy Chronicles Pod, on Twitter, Baby Daddy Chron. The YouTube, I'm gonna put that in the episode details as well. Subscribe, share. If you see a dad that may need this, share it with a dad. Share it with a upcoming dad. You know what I'm saying? A soon to be an expecting dad. Because this is all that the podcast is. Facebook, I started a group, Baby Daddy Chronicles. So I'm about to start ramping that up soon. That's just gonna be basically for somewhere where I could put the podcast where other dads can share, but also a safe space for dads. So let's say like I'm a new dad and you're in the group and you have like, and I have questions, you're able to answer those, so we can just create one big community, because that's what it takes. It takes a community, whether you know the person or not. It takes a community to help raise kids. So I love y'all, appreciate y'all, man. It's your future favorite Baby Daddy signing off. Thank you for getting on once again.
Thank you so much.
I'm gonna see y'all next week. Peace.